Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and we're back again with another Spirit Island video. This is my second of 3 videos in a series covering the different ways to play Spirit Island digitally. The first was about the Handelabra app, this one is about Tabletop Simulator, and the last one will be on Play by Post. Links to the other videos will be in the description. So let's talk about Tabletop Simulator. This is a game that can be purchased on Steam, and it is largely a sandboxy physics engine with which you can use all kinds of mods. So we're in the main menu right now, and if this is your first time using Tabletop Simulator, you're going to want to click on this light bulb to begin the tutorial, and that's the core of how to use the game regardless of which mod you're on. So, it tells us, we can pick up a card, flip it, put it in the deck, and then we can quickly drag it away, and all kinds of stuff like that. Anyway, it'll let us play around with cards and give us all kinds of basic functions. But we're going to hit escape. This will pop up this menu, and we'll return to the main menu. Go through that so that way you know all the basic core functions. Those are all used in the mod, but I'm going to be focusing on the controls that are unique to this mod. So in order to play Spirit Island on Tabletop Simulator, you will have to download a mod. There's a link in the description so you can get the mod made by MJ and Iacona. They have been making continuous improvements over the years, and now it's an absolute thing of beauty. So once you are subscribed to that mod, you can click right here on Create and Single Player in order to start a solo game. So now we get this screen here, and we come with some default mods. But right here on this blue line is the ones that I am subscribed to. And so we'll just click on Spirit Island by MJ and Iacona and load it in. And it's going to look a heck of a lot like this. If you've watched any of my other videos, you're pretty familiar with the screen. So when you load into the mod, your default a gray spectator, which means you're not a player and you can't really interact with anything. Gray spectator cannot interact. Okay, cool. So in order for us to actually become a player, we have to pick a seat. There are 6 seats, since you can play up to 6 players in a game. And let's say I'm going to sit here, and I'm going to choose to pick red. Now that I've picked a seat, I can start to play around with different objects. So now that we've chosen our seat and picked our color, maybe the first thing we want to do is pick our spirit. So we come up here and we take a look, and you might notice that nothing from Nature Incarnate is actually available yet. The mod made by MJ and Iacona at this time does not have anything from Nature Incarnate incorporated. However, a group of community members led by Lolzax created an add-on mod which includes everything from Nature Incarnate. There's a link in the description where you can download this add-on mod, but once you have subscribed to it, to access it, what you're going to do is come up here to Games, and we're going to have all the different mods pop up again. This time, we're going to go to Nature Incarnate Expansion for Spirit Island, go to these 3 dots where it says Options, and we're going to select Additive Load. This takes the other mod and superimposes it on top of this one, and they're designed to work well together. So now we can see we have all the Nature Incarnate spirits here, and all the different aspects are also in their various spirit bags. Great. So we decided we want to play a spirit. Gosh, so many great choices. I can't quite decide which one I want to play. Well, there's this really nifty feature. If you come over here to the right-hand side, where you can get a random spirit, and you can also do gain a spirit. So gain a spirit will give you an option of 4 to choose from, and then you can pick one, and random spirit will just give you a single one. So let's say that we chose random spirit. Hey, look at that. Looks like we're playing Starlight Seeks Its Form. Cool. Great. Oh, maybe I want to do a 2-player game. So I'm simply going to sit down in another seat. I'm going to pick purple this time. Great, so now you can see I'm currently sitting here as the purple player, but if I want to become the red player again, I can just click on Play Spirit, And now I'm back to being the red player controlling Starlight. And now we're back to being the purple player. Great. So for purple, we're going to try the gain a spirit option. And now we have a choice of 4 different spirits. And note how it mentions any particular aspect that shows up. So we get Heart of the Wildfire, and this is going to be base Heart of the Wildfire, not transforming. We have Shifting Memory, and specifically the Intensify aspect. Dances up earthquakes. He doesn't have any aspects. And then we have Ocean's Hungry Grasp with the Deeps aspect. Let's say I choose Shifting Memory. So now the spirit pops up, and we have the Intensify aspect right there. Cool. If you're going to be choosing any of these random options, we can see that there are various boxes that we can uncheck. So if for some reason we don't want to play a spirit from a certain set or a certain complexity, we can uncheck those boxes. But by default, everything comes fully checked off. So now we are sitting here. We are currently playing as purple with Shifting Memory. And let's say that we decide, you know what, I really don't want to play as purple. I feel like that color doesn't really represent Shifting Memory. I think maybe I should play brown because, he's an earth spirit. So I am here. I just click on swap to brown, and everything, it reloads itself, is now brown. My seat is brown. My icon up here is brown. Everything is switched over to brown. In the same way, I'm playing as Starlight right now, and when I think of Starlight, I think of teal. There we go. Now we have teal. But, while I'm here, I realize that I want to have Memory on the left and Starlight on the right. So we're going to click on Swap Places. All right. Cool. Oh, let's put it back. You know what? Maybe I want to have Starlight way over here on the right side. There we go. We can move ourselves around anytime in the pregame, and we'll also show how to do it in the middle of the game as well. But for now, we're just going to bring Starlight back over to here. Cool. Now, let's say that Starlight wants to be brown and Shifting Memory wants to be teal. Well, instead of doing the whole do-si-do where you click on different colors and you do things like that, we're teal right now, and we can click on Swap Brown. And there we go. Now they have switched colors. We can mess around quite a bit with the colors that we're playing as or the seat that we're sitting in, but once a spirit has been selected, you must play that spirit. The only way to not play that spirit or to deselect it would just be to reload the mod. So anyways, we've picked our spirits, and the next thing we're going to do is set up the rest of the game. So we're just going to scroll up here, and we have this chunk of information. Take note, we can click on Hide UI to make it all go away, but we're going to do Show UI, and here's a list of all of the different adversaries and all of the different scenarios. Currently, we have things set up for 1 player. Let's say we want to do 2 players because we're doing a 2-handed game. And we can select our adversary, and we can see we have no adversary, a random adversary, or we can select a specific one. If we choose random, it only chooses from among those that are checked off. If you say that I want to do a random game, but I don't want to play against France, you can just deselect it from that upper right-hand corner. If you wanted to do a double adversary game, you could do that. So you could have, leading England supporting Sweden. And for each adversary, you can select the level at which you will play. So you could do like an England 6 game, right? England 6, Sweden 1, whatever combination that you choose. Okay, so we're just going to do this. We're going to do an England 3. We can see that it's currently listed as a difficulty of 6. So now we can add a scenario. We could have no scenario. We could have a random scenario. Or we could choose whatever scenario we so choose. Additionally, when you have more than one player, you can have a different layout for your board. So for 2 players, right, it'll show up as fragment, opposite shores, thematic, balanced, you have different names for different arrangements of boards. Coastline, Sunrise, Leaf, Snake, Snail, Peninsula, V, Star, Flower, Caldera. And for all of these options, we do have a random option, and we also have thematic. So that would be on like the north, east, west, south, all the different cardinal direction boards on the backside that are not balanced. By default, all of this is checked off, that we are going to be playing with every single expansion, but if you wanted to remove any particular expansion's content, you can deselect any of these. That will get rid of any power cards that came along with that set. It'll get rid of the events, the fear cards, all the different components that came from these various sets you can choose to disable on a set-by-set basis. Underneath, we have a few other things. So first we have show variant rules. And just here's some modifications to rules that people may choose to use. There is a weekly challenge that is built into the mod, so every single week you can try some particular setup to see if you can win. Let's check out this week's weekly challenge. We can see for one player, it is at moderate difficulty, Prussia 5 with no scenario. Balanced board, board H will be for Finder. We can go up to hard difficulty, and now it's a Prussia 6, and very hard is Prussia 6 with Scotland 3 supporting. And all of these are with Finder of Paths Unseen on board H. Two players, we can see bumps up. Now we have to do the same thing, but also Relentless Gaze on E. With the third player, looks like Shadows is added on board F, and so on from there. So let's say that we wanted to do this setup with Finder on H, Relentless on E, Shadows on F, and Eyes on A. We would simply click on Start Game, and it'll do all of it for us exactly the way that it is set for the week. And we can see we've got the 4 players and the 4 boards. There is playtesting options. I've never messed around with playtesting options, but I know that there are some people that really like to bring their custom spirits into TTS, and they will mess around with this in order to make sure that their new spirit works great. There's also exploratory. There's a few conceptual things that you can test out here. These are all various ideas that were brought out by Eric Royce to test out at one point or another. And this last button here just says Advanced Settings, and that just hides all the options we just talked about. So if you don't want to interact with them, you could also just ignore them. But right now I have it set to England 3, but let's say that we just wanted to play against something random. Well, the only real unifying thing from one invader to the next is the difficulty rating. So let's say that I want to play a game at difficulty somewhere in like a 5 to 6 range. Okay, we can deselect any adversary we don't want to play against, set our minimum random difficulty, maximum random difficulty, and then sometimes that means that we'll have 2 different ways that we could play a specific adversary, such as right here, Sweden. Sweden 3 is a difficulty 5, and Sweden 4 is a difficulty 6. Let's just say that I want to set it such that when Sweden pops up, it's always the harder version of it within this random range. We will select Maximize Adversary Level. Now, if we random into Sweden, it will give us 4 every time. It will not give us 3. Anyways, once you feel like you have set up the way that you would like it to, you can simply click on Start Game. All right, we had to set to 6 players. Whoops, this is going to be a 6-player board here. Okay, there we go. Here is a 6-player balanced board. And we are against Russia 3, which is a difficulty of 6. So now that we're in the game and we realize we're playing a 6-player game with only 2 spirits, how do we add more players? Well, in this upper right-hand corner, we have a whole bunch of buttons, and we'll be exploring them soon. But let's start with seat controls. By clicking this, all of these options appear that we saw at the beginning of the game before we started. So in the same way that we sat down and picked spirits, before the game started, we can do that right now. So I could go ahead, I could pick, purple, and then we could play, well, not Relentless Gaze, that doesn't make sense. Maybe we want to play as Ocean. And in the exact same way, we can do all kinds of different swapping of which spirit we're playing as. We can swap our colors, we can swap our places. All of those same options are still available right now and at every point for the rest of the game. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves quite yet. Coming back to this setup menu, we have a little bit more options. So let's draw our attention to all of this stuff in the upper left corner. Everything here is a small bag that are used for the setup. We have here the different expansions, so if you were to disable using the expansions, it simply would not use these bags here. So we don't need to interact with these or most of these other items. However, there is one thing that you may choose to do, and that is these 3 bags here. So we have 6 thematic boards, 8 balanced boards, and then 8 extra balanced boards. So if you want to see the contents of this or any other bag, we can right-click on it and then click on Search. And here we can see that it simply has boards A through H inside of it. So we also have G and H. If you take a look in the extra balanced boards, it's the exact same thing. And then the thematic boards, we have all the different cardinal directions here. So why would we want to interact with these? Well, what if we really want to play a game on a specific board, or we want to have a specific combinations of board set up in a way, especially if it's not one of those predetermined ways that we were seeing earlier? Well, we could go into this bag and we can go around and let's say we really want to play a game on board C. We can click and drag the item, drop it off here, and look at that. Now we have board C. And when we start our game, it will build it on this board right here. Okay, so if we have that, then why do we have these extra balanced boards? Well, let's just say we have board B here, and for some reason, we want to have multiple board Bs in the game. We could just grab this extra board B, and there we go. Now we can set up a little 2-board game where they're both board B. And there you go, fully set up with both of them being board B. All right, now let's talk about these buttons up here in the corner that we alluded to earlier. So first off, if you want to hide this menu, you have this little arrow here. You can click it to make it appear or go away. First thing we're going to look at is core buttons. If we click on them, there's these buttons that were just over here on the left. Click on them, now they come back. Okay, it's just a gain a major, gain a minor, and a time passes buttons. 3 very useful ones. By the way, these things, you can move them around if you want to. Okay, next we have Invader Board. So when we click on this, it'll show us these 2 items, and these ones are also movable. So currently there's 3 blight in the pool. We have earned 0 fear, and there's 4 fear left in the pool. Normally when you add fear, you'd want to come over here to the Invader Board, and if you click here, that would add a fear, and that would take 1 out of the pool, and you can see that's represented over here. Or hey, maybe we made a mistake, and you can click at the top. Okay? This is the exact same way that it works in the physical game. Unearned fear sits at the top, and earned fear sits at the bottom. Okay, with this, it's a left to right, where the left is the earned side and the right is the unearned side. Now, in the same way that we can click here, we can also click here. So if I want to earn fear, we can do so here. And if we want to take back fear, we can do so here. One of the nice things that's scripted with this game is once we earn sufficient fear, we automatically get the top card in the fear deck. One important thing to pay attention to, though, is that if we made a mistake and we need to undo that fear, there's a warning, okay? It's not scripted to take it back. We'd have to do it ourselves. But we can always earn that fear and take it right back. Okay, this down here is just a copy of this here. So we can see that we are currently in stage 1. There is no card in the build slot and no card in the ravage slot. If we want to explore, we come down here to the Invader Board and we click on the Explore button. And there we go, it's a wetlands. And as we can see here, it's transcribed over, it's a wetlands. At the end of each invader phase, the last thing that you do is you move all of the invader cards to the left. So if you click on this, it will do that slide for you. On the next turn, right, we can see that there is no ravage, there is a build in the wetlands, and then we can explore the mountains. Then on the next turn, we come here and check it out. Because of the Scotland changes to the Invader deck, this is now a stage 2 card and it has an escalation on it. As we can see here, it has an E, which represents escalation. Okay, a little bit of time passes, and then we will get to the coastal card, which is blue with a C. A little more time passes, we get to a stage 3, and we will see it is a jungle sands. It is both, and it shows up as follows. There are some effects in the game, such as fear cards, which can mess with the way that this normal progression works. For example, immigration slows at stage 2. Okay, so we would skip a build, and the build card remains in place instead of shifting left. So holding this card in place is not scripted through this. So what we would do is we would go here, and then you can manually move a few things around. So I could take this card here and put it on top, and then here we can see both of them listed. The way that these cards are stacked, the game understands it as the jungle sands arrive first and the mountain arrives second. And so they're oriented left to right, since in the game rules, you execute one card at a time, going from oldest to newest. So the most accurate way to do this will just be to do a little do-si-do like that, and then you're good to go. Now mountains is on the left and jungle sands is on the right. Coming back up to these buttons though, we also have adversary. So we randomed into Scotland level 3. Now up here, we could take a look at Scotland, and here's the entire card. When I play physically, I like to put something like a Dahan on the number that I'm playing against. Some people here will use the pen tool and just scribble over what they're not playing with. But you can also just click on adversary and it only shows you the pertinent rules. Take note, Scotland 2 only affects your setup. It does not affect your play, so it does not appear here. If we were to hover over the additional loss condition, it tells us what it is. If we hover over stage 2 escalation, it explains that as well. Similarly, any rule that affects the game, we can get an explanation of what that is. This way, we can be focused on the board and everything that's going on here and double checking any effects that matter without having to jump back and forth left and right over and over again, which could get a bit distracting. The next thing on this list is turn order. So if we click on this button, it shows us how everything goes in the turn, right? You have your spirit phase, fast phase, invader phase, slow phase, and then time passes. And within each of these phases, there are some subdivided sections just to help you keep track of exactly what you need to do. So how does the game know when we've moved from one phase to the next? Well, let's grab a spirit. Okay, right now the game has started and it knows that we have no presence on the island, so it triggered us a loss. But let's just quickly toss something out there so we don't just lose. Okay, we have this little thing right here. Okay, it's a little token. On one side it has an X, on the back side it has a check. In order to see the back side of an object, by the way, I hold down Alt to see it bigger, and then while holding Alt I press Shift, and that shows me the back side of it. And that works for any object. So for this, you can see both sides of a card. Anyways, when we were to flip this over, that sends a script out, and once every single person in the game has flipped over to the check side, we progress to the next phase. Okay, so everyone does their spirit phase. Okay, we call that readying up, and everyone readies up. We go to the fast phase. Everyone executes their fast cards. You ready up again, and you move to the invader phase. Now, if we were to ready up again, nothing happens. So how do we get from the invader phase to the slow phase? Well, the last thing that happens in the invader phase, once again, is to advance cards. So we push this button and see how the game progresses us to the slow power phase. Cool. Now, once again, we can keep on readying up, but it will not progress the game forwards until we click on the time passes button. Okay, and it'll do a bit of cleanup if there was any damaged buildings, if there was any temporary things like defend markers, all of that will get cleaned up. And now we can see we're on turn 2 and we're in the spirit phase. One other cool note, by the way, with this advanced invader cards is that if you flip an event by clicking this button, it reveals the top card of the event. Once you advance your invader cards, it will also slide off that event. So that's just a really nice quality of life feature. You don't need to like flip the event and then move it yourself. Back up here to the corner, we have seat controls. We already talked about that, switching your seats around. And since technically we've lost the game because it triggered a loss because of having no presence, game results is now available. And we can click on this and be like, oh my gosh, we lost. But obviously we did not lose, right? So what we're going to do is click undo. And now the game will progress like normal. If we were now to lose by losing all our presence again, the game will see it. And now it will once again say that we were defeated. Okay, but if we undo and this comes back here, and then we were to destroy all these things, or they get knocked off the island for some reason, it'll see that, and look at that. Victory! Whoopah! We won! Turn 2! We're so good! So let's put all this stuff away for a second. And let's talk about adding items to the board. So one way that you could add items is just to click and drag things over. So up here we have explorers, towns, cities, and Dahan. Over here we have many of the tokens. And we could just click and drag an explorer here, here, etc. That's going to be very tedious. It's going to take a lot of work, especially in a big game. You have to like move yourself all across the screen. So if you take a look down here in the spawn objects area, these are the most common things scripted to various numbers on your keyboard. So the common ones you're going to be using a lot is explorer, town, city, 1, 2, 3. And then from 4 through 0, we have a whole bunch of other tokens. Whenever you click any of these things, it will be produced at the spot of your mouse at the time of the click. So I'm going to create an explorer here, like in the ocean. I'm going to shoot my mouse away, but you'll see it will land here in the ocean. But anyways, like I was saying, you've got all these other things that can be produced, and they will just get pulled out of their various bags. Take note that the blight will come out of this bag here, which has a limited quantity. All the others is an infinite quantity, unless if you're playing against France with these towns. But the blight, when I produce a blight, notice that this is going to drop from a 2 to a 1. So let's say we kept on making more blight, and we got ourselves all the way down to 0. We get a reminder that says the blight container is now empty. We can come over here, and we can click on Blighted Island. And it will flip the blight card over. It will give us this random card, and it auto-populates it based on how many players are in the game. This is a solo game, so 4 blight per player creates 4. In a multiplayer game, it'll scale appropriately. Now, let's say that we got some blight removed. We can just take the blight and we could destroy it. We could just toss it off the edge of the island and it jumps straight over here. So blight removal is nice and easy. Now, take note, this will refill and anything here will go back to its bag. These ones are not counted, but they would go back. It does not produce fear if you were to toss a town in. So if we pull up the Invader Board, okay, you can see that we have 0 fear. We toss a town off, it's still at 0 fear. So what can we do? There's 2 options. The first one, and a very popular one, is if we come up here to the upper left-hand corner, one of these bags here is destroy bags. So we can just pull one of these guys out. And if we were to drop a city into it, a city produces 2 fear when destroyed. And bam, 2 fear gets produced right here like so. Explorers produce nothing, right? Other tokens, you can toss them in, but it doesn't do anything. But a town produced, drops in, and bam, that's a fear. The second option is that you can actually get that scripted. So if we come up here to options, then go down to game keys, These are all of the different game keys that are affiliated with this mod. So as you can see, many of them are going to be auto-populated, adding explorers, towns, cities, and all these other tokens. Okay. Now, I've added a few myself. So adding a defend marker, I put down as O, and then an isolate marker as I. So if I want to produce those two tokens, normally you would have to grab them from here and you'd have to pull them out. But I scripted those for mine. Okay, there's many that I have not scripted, such as creating energy. We'll talk more about that in a second. But U, I scripted for vitality. But there's also destroy piece. Remove a piece will get rid of it without producing fear. Destroy piece will create fear for whenever that's appropriate, which is really just towns and cities. And for me, mouse 3 is my side mouse button. I happen to have a Razor Death Adder, which has 2 mouse buttons. I could script both of them, but I've only scripted one of them. And then we've got others here, right? So you can downgrade or upgrade pieces. I usually just, toss them off to the side and replace them. But there's a lot of different things that you can script. So plenty of things that you can do to customize your experience to make it more clean and efficient for yourself. For me, right, I put a town here, and I'm going to use my mouse 3 button, my side mouse button, and bam, produces a fear, and I happen to earn a fear card. So that's how I'm able to add things really fast and then destroy them super fast too. Take note that you cannot destroy your presence, and many other items you cannot destroy as well, which is good, right? If you make a misclick, you would hate for your presence to just vanish off the island. Many objects in this game have various states in which they can exist. So to cycle through them, you can just hover over an object, and then you can use the page up and page down buttons in order to cycle through them. So we can see here the city says 1 out of 3. It has 3 different ways it can exist. Okay, 0 damage, 1 damage, and 2 damage. But there are other objects too. So our presence has 2 different ways of existing, but the second being this little sacred site thing. Some other good ones to pay attention to is this defend marker. Now you can use your page up and page down in order to cycle through the numbers, right? But it's just all the different numbers. If you were to right click on any of these things and go to state, it'll give you all of the different options. So 14, right? It's all pretty obvious for this, but for the city, 1, 2, 3. Okay, it'll just, when you hover, it'll tell you what it is. But another one that's pretty cool is the any element. To turn the any element into a specific element, you can right click on it and convert it into any element of your choice. When we go to time passes, it will automatically clear off some of these objects like the defend, but it'll also heal any buildings. So let's say we're playing Shroud, who can prevent buildings from healing. What do? Well, we want to lock the object. One way that you can do that is if you hover over the object and press L, it is now locked. When it is locked, I cannot pick it up, I cannot select it, it just sits there. In order to unlock it, to interact with it, I can press L again, and now I can start to interact with it. Similarly, we could right click on the object, come to toggles, and select lock. A cool feature is if we have a locked object and then we stack another object on top of it, that maybe it is also damaged, we do not need to lock this higher one. When we go to time passes, we will be good. The whole stack will be okay. So we added those 2 cities. The bottom one is locked. The top one is not. We go to time passes, and it all holds still. I guess for comparison, we could show a damaged building. When we go to time passes, that town heals itself. So that covers just about everything that you're going to need for on the board and interacting with pieces. So let's go down to our spirit. So if we come down here, we have our spirit. We happen to pick Hearth Vigil, and here is a few important things for us. So first, this is our energy pool. Hearth Vigil starts with 1 energy, but that can go up and down over the course of the game. So we can click on this plus button to increase our energy, this minus button to decrease our energy, or clear will set it to 0. Now there's a couple things that are scripted here. So when it comes time to gain energy, it's based on what is the highest revealed on our tracks. So let's say we're here and we're going to gain 2 energy for the turn. We click on gain, and we can see this went from 0 to 2. Now we play some cards, and we can see that there's 2 cost worth of cards in play. If you can see really closely, there is red here and then brown here. Okay, this is the edge of our board, and this would be someone else's board. If this were to sit on the other side, even though it's on the table and kind of in front of us, it's not in our zone, and so it is not counted in our energy cost. And it gets kind of sketchy when you're like right on the line. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So just to make things clear and obvious, put everything right there in the middle. In this situation, we have 3 energy cost, but only 2 in the pool. So we try to pay, and it says we do not have enough energy. Very cool. So we go to pay, it deducts that 1 energy, and then we're good to go. Some other great things that are scripted here is keeping track of our elements. So you might have noticed as we were flipping around with different cards, whatever elements we had in play was all shown right here. Right now, we have 2 suns, 1 from favors, but the other from our track. Okay, we have 1 moon, 1 air, 2 animals, etc., etc., etc. Now that's good to keep track of in and of itself, but down here we also have our innate powers, and when we meet the elemental thresholds, it checks itself off. So we can see right now we happen to have our 2 suns, 1 earth, and our 1 animal, but nothing else. If we were to throw more cards out there, that very well could change. Over the course of a game, we're going to be using our cards, but as we know, we do not discard anything until the time passes. So to represent that a card has been used, it is customary to simply turn it to its side. Then, when it comes to time passes, all cards in play will go to your discard. So this group here is going to be your cards in hand, and this group here is going to be your discard. Let's say you get a constancy or some other form of reclaim 1. You can just drag from one group to the next. We can see we're always going to have our hand here as well, so it can be nice to look at the island, look at our cards in hand, and figure everything out. But let's say that we're taking our growth 1, our reclaim all option. We just click on reclaim all, and our hand completely refills. If at any time you would like to check the rules, if you come over here on the right side, you can click on Show Rulebooks. And this will pull up all of the rulebooks for all of the expansions, so you can check any rule that you need. Now, this might be a little bit hard to read, like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on this pop out to screen button in the upper left corner in all of these different rulebooks, and it'll pop up right here, and it's much easier to navigate. Okay, we can put those away. There's also these player aids. So if we click on the Show Player Aids button, these guys will pop up right here. So you can see all these little reminder cards for what wilds do or things like that. Last, there is Show Editors. Now, I've never messed with this. I'm pretty sure that this is something for playtesting. But if you want to, you can mess around with this and bring your own spirits in. With the information covered so far, you should be able to successfully play on Tabletop Simulator. I have all of the necessary links in the description of this video so you can download all the mods. If you want more than a solo experience though, you can also do multiplayer. If you join the Discord and come to the role selection channel up at the top, you can select the fast icon here in order to receive the LFG, or the slow icon here to receive the LFG relaxed role. Both of these roles are intended for games to be played on Tabletop Simulator. After doing that, come over here to Looking for Game underneath Spirit Island, and you can organize or join a multiplayer game. Whenever someone puts out a message to play a game, a bot will create an initial response. So that way it's much more convenient for everyone else to join up as well. So we can click on that ourselves to declare our intention to play. Then hop into a voice channel with the rest of your team. To join the game, you must go to the TTS home screen and select Join. Then up here in the search bar, you're going to want to put in Spirit Island. And you will see all of the available games to join. Here in the host column, you can see who created the game. That way you join the right one. The default password for games played on the Discord is Dahan in all lowercase. If you would like to be the host of a game yourself, then instead you're going to click on Create and Multiplayer. And then here you have a few options. You can set the server name, the type, the password. Like I said, it's Dahan in all lowercase, and the max number of players. Then from this point, it's just the same as any other game. You just want to open up the mod, and then you can additively load Nature Incarnate as well. If, after having started the game, you would like to make changes to some of those options, you can go up here to Options and select Server, and you can make changes here. So this covers everything that is necessary to play your first game on the mod. As you can tell, this video does keep going, but that is to address a number of more niche situations which may be less common. So hey, thank you guys for watching. So I pulled here 6 spirits that have a few unique things going for them. So starting with Dances Up Earthquakes, we start with our own little bag of Quake tokens. That's a thing that's unique to us. But with dances, we have an extra zone where we need to keep track of energy. So what I like to do is if you come up here to the corner, we have a whole bunch of energy counters here. So you can collect them all. And I always like to play dances on the side, so that way I have space to spread out. But you can put this here, and then you can start tracking your energy for your various powers, tracking them all individually. For Ocean, we have our little drowning thing. So for Ocean, whenever things get pushed into the ocean, it gets converted into energy for us, and this is the means by which we can do it. It's a little bit small, so let's right click on it, and we'll go to Scale, Up, and we can make this nice and big. So this is a 6-player game, so every 6 health worth of invaders that goes into it will convert into an energy. So we can see a city goes in, we get 3 out of the 6 is allocated for, but if another city goes in, it goes back down to 0, and we can see we now have an energy here. It'll do so automatically. If for some reason we do not want this to happen automatically, we can uncheck this here, and as invaders go into it, it's just going to collect, and it's going to go higher than your base amount. And you would just click on the +1 energy, and you'll see it will go down to 12, and this will go up to 2. Okay. Another cool thing is that whole time we were producing fear. So we drowned a whole bunch of cities, but let's say that we're going to do one more. Goes from 10 fear left in the pool to 6 fear left in the pool since 2 more fear was generated. So it does both of these things simultaneously. It's like a better destroy bag. In a similar manner, Downpour also has a little bit of energy manipulation. For every 2 water elements that they have, they can either gain an energy or repeat a power card. So if they just have a bunch of these water elements in play, maybe they have a few cards in play. Right now they're at 6 water elements, and we can see that that means we have 3 pairs. Okay, 0 out of 3 listed right now. If we wanted to repeat a power, we could just click it here, and we have to manually change our energy count. But we could also just cash it in for energy. And if we click on +1 energy here, this ticker will go up, but our energy count will go up as well. Let's say we made a mistake. Just right click on it, and it goes away. Coming over to Wounded Waters Bleeding, you start with a bunch of extra cards. Okay, and we can see them all down here. So we have a 3rd zone. You have your hand, discard pile, and then this 3rd zone that exists for all these healing cards. If you're playing Fractured Days, you will also have a 3rd zone for your days that never were. Wounded Waters also comes with a whole bunch of these unassigned healing markers. So they're kind of like any elements, except they can only become water or animal. Breath of Darkness, like many spirits, starts with a couple extra things. Breath starts with an Incarnate as well as the Endless Dark, and so you can see in our setup we have it all right here. Other spirits might start with other tokens, as we see Wounded Water starts with an extra Blight. All of that will be produced when you click your spirit. And then coming over to Shifting Memory, similar to Wounded Waters, we have our own unique element thing. This one is element markers. So these element markers, right, you can convert them into whatever you want them to. They do not count as elements up here, okay? So you can keep all that stuff going, and it'll all keep it straight. The game will not get confused. Sometimes I get confused though, so I like to keep my element markers out here So that way if I do gain elements like from E-Boon or anything else, I can drag them out like so. Now another cool thing with shifting memory is that he actually has 2 aspects. So when we get into a game and we pick one of these, okay, we can actually sit on this and we can think about our decision until the game really starts with that first explore. So we can see right now we have Mentor here and Intensify here. And I just swapped this over to this side so it'll be easier to see. Once we do our first explore of the game, okay, and then we advance the Invader cards for the first time, that is when this is going to go away. Okay, bam, gone. Now you might have also noticed that Ocean had an aspect, but now it's gone too because we elected to not use it, so it goes away. But let's say that we actually did want to play this. So we pull up the Deeps one here, and you can see that there's actually 2 Deeps cards and the Deeps tokens. All of that automatically comes out as soon as we select Deeps. So when you're playing a spirit like Deeps that has this unique tokens bag, if we were just quickly click and pull, we're just going to be pulling on an individual Deeps token. If we want to move this whole bag over, we're going to press, hold until the whole thing lifts up. See how there's that pause? And then we can move it. Now, we could just put the bag out here. That's going to be a little hard to see. One thing that I like to do with every spirit is to get a spirit marker. And so for every spirit, what you're going to do is you're going to right-click on it and click on Get Spirit Marker. And it'll create a little image copy from your spirit right here, and it'll put a ring in your color. Now, in a multiplayer game, you can do this so that we identify what your home board is. It's pretty standard in a multiplayer game that everyone has one home board and you handle all of the invader actions on your home board and no one else's. This way, you don't accidentally double explore or forget to explore or any other action in any particular land. So I like to take my Deeps tokens and leave it on my spirit icon, but you can do as you see fit. Another interesting thing with Deeps is the way the rules work. When you're playing the physical game, once you had the 3, right, you killed this, you would flip over 2 and then push the rest out. Now, this is how it works in the physical game, but digitally, there is an extra little thing. So I don't know why it's out here, but way out in just outer space, there's these 2 random bags. This one has nothing in it, but this one you can see has 64 items in it. So if you're going to right-click, search, we can see every single land in the game because there's 8 different boards, 8 lands per board. That is 64 lands. So we are playing on board E. So if we were to drown E2, we can come here, find E2, and pull this object out. And instead of having all of that, we could just put this right here, and it's designed to line up quite nicely. It's a really nice feature to have these kind of lands, and it makes for a lot more fun end-of-game screenshots like this one from the other day. Anyways, when you're in a multiplayer game, there's other things you have to consider for proper team communication. You know, when you're talking about where you're going to be doing an action, oftentimes you'll just do the board plus land number, so this would be E7. But another thing that you can do is you can press tab. As a quick press of the tab, it will drop this arrow, and it makes a really loud, obnoxious ping that I've got muted on mine because it's just so irritating. But other people might not have it muted, so you might not want to be up there spamming pings. So what I like to do in case of other people don't have that muted is if you press and hold tab, you can then start drawing a line like this. So from wherever your mouse is, and then wherever you move it to, it'll draw a line. For our purposes, I like to do it when it's like, oh, hey, can you use this power in this land over here? That would be really nice for me. I'd really appreciate that. That kind of stuff. So another thing that's often going to happen in a multiplayer game that'll require good team communication is different kinds of choice events, such as this one, Years of Little Rain. Now, this one, in order to get the bottom option, a cost must be paid aided by water. Everyone will have their own spirits out and their own element trackers going. And if you want to see everything summarized, click here on Element Helper. And this will show what everyone has in play across the board. So like I could be here and maybe I decide to go full top track or something. So I've got 3 waters, 2 moons, and an earth. And we can see all of that transcribed right here. So just for demonstration purposes, I pulled up another spirit. And so we can see that they have 3 waters. And now we have 6 waters because there's 3 from each spirit. And that makes it a lot easier to figure out where you're at and where you need to be. So let's say that I want to discard a card to help pay for this event. What I can do is I can take my element markers, and if I toss them up, they will not count for me, but they will be counted for this. So this is a thing that you're going to commonly see people do is, hey, I'm willing to discard a card, or maybe Wounded Waters is like, hey, I'll pay 1 energy, okay, and forget a card. Okay, so this will help us hit in case if we need it for like a 3 or more people, then we would need higher levels of water. All of this will be great. So you can toss all your stuff out there without actually committing to anything yet, because then there might be some negotiation. This will help you keep track of exactly where you're at. Similarly, there is this ready helper. So it'll show you whether or not everyone has readied up. So if one guy readies up, they will flip over to a check mark, and that can be another thing. So everything is organized right here instead of having to look across. So let's say that you want to test out your custom spirit or something like that. Well, what you can do to bring it into the game is via the saved objects. So if we come up here to objects, and then we go to saved objects, well, there's a lot of different things that exist, like different boards and cards and components, tables, things like that. But if you go to saved objects, you can have a JSON file and have that saved so that way you can bring it into the game. I've only got this one thing. It's called an auto player promoter. If you're not promoted, there's a lot of features that you just can't do. So I often just like to pull this out, give players some flexibility. It lets them like delete objects and have a few other controls. But if you have a custom spirit, right, and you bring it in, then you can import that into the game just by clicking and dragging. By the way, if you don't have an auto player promoter object, you can just click on someone's name, and in this here, there'll be an option to promote the player, and that's only available to the game host. So if you want to get a JSON put into your save files, you're going to go to Documents, My Games, Tabletop Simulator, and then from here you can go into Saves, and these are all my saved files, like my saved games, things like that. Or you can go into Saved Objects, and all I've got right now is the Auto Player Promoter, but you could bring in other objects as well if someone wants to share their custom spirit with you. With all of these save files, that's how you can also create a saved game state and share that with someone if for some reason you want to do that as well. Normally, when you go to gain a minor or major, you'll just click on one of these cards. It'll pull up 4 choices for you. You click on one of them, and the rest go away. That's all good and fine, but Boon of Reimagining and Unlock the Gates of Deepest Power play out a little bit differently. So if you get targeted with Boon, you're going to want to right-click on Gain a Minor. That'll give you 6 cards here. Now, if you were to left-click one of these, the other 5 would go away, and that could be very frustrating. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to pick our card, and we're going to right-click on it. That'll give us the card, and then everything else will stay. Okay, if we had right-clicked again, then it all stays again. But what we really want to do is then for our second card, we left-click on it, and then everything else will go away. That's quite nice. Same exact thing, but backwards for unlock. So you're going to right-click on Gain a Major, and it'll give you 2 to pick from, and then you can, select one and go for it. There are some majors that have some reminder cards affiliated with them, such as that Bargains or others in the major deck. So when we right-click on this, by the way, if you hit spread, sometimes I hit spread instead of search, it'll do this. And that can be pretty freaky. So if that happens to you and you don't want that to happen, just select everything, press G, it'll group it all right back up. But let's spread it out, and we can pick out a few cards that come with like grab reminder tokens. So we have Dream of the Untouched Land. This, Bargains, or other cards like that come with reminder cards. You simply click on grab reminder and the card will appear. So that's pretty easy. Another card that works a little bit special is Cast Down into the Briny Deep. So for this, normally you just destroy everything in land and that's all good and fine, but the threshold lets you destroy a board. If you click on this, nothing seems to happen. What you want to do is you want to put this on top of the island board that you wish to destroy, and then select Destroy Board. And everything goes away. It's a sacrifice victory because there's no island left. That's how that works in solo play. But let me quickly pull that up in a multiplayer game. All right, so here we go. We're in a multiplayer game. So now we have more than one island board. And we have this cast down into the briny deep. So we're going to destroy this board. And there we go. The whole board is gone. And we got the 3 fear from the starting city and town. Take note that cast down does give you 6 additional fear on top of that, which was not calculated. And then after it's used, it drops back on top of your spirit. So that way it can go to your, well, it'll be in play and return as normal. So let's say you're playing Finder and you have a very normal Finder looking land that looks a little something like this. And you know, that's just a lot of things going on. And this is all in one land and you don't want to have to count everything. What do? Come up here to the corner, and this upper bag here is a counting bag. Okay? This serves no purpose other than to just count objects. So, you know, we can put, you know, all these towns in there, and it says there's 5 towns with 0 damage on them. Okay, if this guy were to get damage, though, and go in, so there's 5 towns with 1 damage, and then 1 town with 1 damage on it. Now, if you're going to try and put all of this stuff in, you might find that, you know, these 2 Dahan at the bottom, that beast, they might not actually make it into the bag. Okay, see how the beast is not in there? The disease didn't make it in there either. So you just got to be careful with that stuff. You want to do it in smaller groups, but eventually you'll get yourself into this bag where you can see everything that is in it. I generally try to avoid using these bags because once it's in here, all the normal actions don't work. You need to pull each individual invader out in order to interact with them, such as destroying them or anything like that. But if things are going ridiculous and crazy, this is a good thing to keep in mind, a little trick up your sleeve. So here are 2 other cards that can create some permanent effects for your spirit. So Lesser Spirits Imperiled is pretty easy. You just get a permanent element. So you could just grab your element and then simply lock it by pressing L. And now when time passes, this will stay. But Aid from Lesser Spirits is also a little bit different. So you'll get yourself your minor power, and right now it's going to cost energy. But if we lock it, now it does not cost any energy. So this is a really great trick. When time passes, this will stay here the whole time. We get credit for the elements too. And so once you pick your card, put it up here in the corner and you can lock it in place, and it makes it so much easier and smoother. It's a really nice feature that I use with this Blight card, as well as Dances Up Earthquakes. So if you need to have your cards come in from Impend, they're free, but you want to look at them for your element combinations, you can lock everything in place before you send off your turn and pay for everything, so that way you can make sure that you're not missing out on any particular threshold. One last thing, for every card in the game, if you right click on it and you get Reminder Token, it'll take the image of the card and put it on a little disc with your player color on it. Now, for many cards, it's not going to be very useful. Like this Voracious Growth, it's like, well, it has an instantaneous effect and then it goes away. But for other effects, it can be quite useful. So, for example, if you have a card like Portents of Disaster, this one is next time something happens, do something. So this would be a great one to grab a reminder for. So it's like, hey, next time something dies, I can consume this token and get my fear. So with all that, I think that covers it. If there's any cool tricks or actions that I did not include in this video, please leave it in the comments, and I'll be sure to put that in the description as well, so that way we can have a great resource for everyone to use. Anyways, until next time, thank you guys so much and have a great day.